Feeling something for another woman can be confusing. You don't know if it's love, attraction, or just curiosity. You just know that something has shifted inside you. It brings that feeling in your stomach, that fear of saying it out loud, that fear of feeling too much or of getting lost in something you don't even fully understand. If you've been through this, or if you're in the middle of it right now, this video is for you. Here, you might find a safe place to take a deep breath and maybe start to understand what's really going on inside. No rush, no labels, just honesty. Because what you feel doesn't make you strange, it makes you human. Stay with me until the end. Sometimes all we need is a space where what we feel is finally allowed to exist. Every time that lesbian, bi, or queer woman shows up, my heart skips a beat and I pretend not to notice. I look away, fix my hair, act like nothing's happening. But inside, I feel drawn to her, and it leaves me confused. I keep asking myself if I'm falling for a woman, if this is real or just in my head. But if it were only in my head, why does it stir so much inside me? Then comes that quiet fear that says it's too risky to like another woman. A fear with so many layers. The fear of coming out, of breaking the image people have of me, of coming out to myself, even if no one else can see it. And the hardest part is, all of it happens in silence, with no one watching. Some days I tell myself it's just a phase, but then she shows up with that beautiful smile and everything inside me starts all over again. And in the middle of it all, there's a question with no answer. How do I tell her how I feel? How can I know if she feels the same way? I catch myself analyzing signs, replaying conversations, looking for clues in every detail, but nothing's clear. And that only makes the fear grow. The fear of seeming foolish or worse, of getting my hopes up and ruining everything. Realizing I'm falling for a woman, that maybe I'm discovering I'm bi or lesbian, has made me see just how hard it is to love another woman and have no idea what to do with all of it. Maybe what you feel is also hiding behind casual conversations, carefully worded texts, silences that say more than 1,000 words. Maybe you're also scared of falling for a woman, but still, you feel it. Maybe you're about to discover that loving a lesbian or bi woman is just as natural as any other kind of love. And what if this video is exactly the safe space you needed to finally listen for real to what you feel? Maybe what's about to happen here is more important than saying it to her. Maybe it's the moment you finally say it to yourself. Since I was a kid, I grew up watching love stories that never showed women who loved women. And when desire finally showed up, it came wrapped in silence, in doubt, in shame. It's like my body tenses up just thinking about falling for another woman. When we feel the urge to say what we feel for her, our hearts freeze like confessing that would somehow put our entire existence at risk. Deep down, that's why so many of us pretend it's nothing, even when everything inside us is screaming. This fear of liking another lesbian, bi, or queer woman isn't just a thought, it lives in the body. It's deeply connected to our nervous system, to what psychology calls the survival response. When our desire clashes with everything we were taught we were supposed to be, the brain goes into defense mode. Some of us freeze, others try to please, to hide, or simply disconnect from what we feel. It's like the body is saying, if you're honest about this feeling, you'll lose love, safety, belonging. And that's way too much to carry on your own. No wonder so many people feel like coming out to themselves is already a huge battle. There's also cultural trauma, the kind that spans generations. Even if we talk more today about lesbian, bi, and queer women, so many of us still carry echoes of an upbringing that erased everything outside the norm. So when you ask yourself how to say what you feel for her, the fear isn't just about now, it comes from a whole history that told you to hide who you are. That's why you shouldn't blame yourself if you feel stuck. You're not weak for being scared. You're just beginning to see how much courage it takes to be your true self in a world that's tried your whole life to make you someone else. And sometimes the most painful part isn't even what you feel for another woman. It's the weight of all the little things you had to swallow along the way. The doubt about your sexuality, the fear of getting hurt, the feeling that maybe you're falling for a woman and have no idea what to do with that. It all builds up like a thick fog between you and your truth. And in the middle of that fog, it's hard to tell if it's love, attraction, friendship, or everything all at once. But something is there, and that something wants space. Because when we understand where this difficulty in saying what we feel comes from, a light starts to appear, even if faint, pointing us toward a possible way through. Maybe the biggest fear isn't even about feeling something, but about being the only one feeling it. The heart finds courage, but the mind panics. What if she doesn't feel the same way? What if I'm misreading everything? I think I've fallen for another woman, and now I'm stuck in this limbo, torn between overthinking and not allowing myself to feel anything at all. My mind keeps repeating over and over, you're going to ruin everything. And that fear of rejection becomes an invisible wall between what I want and what I actually allow myself to live. Because since we were little, we've been taught that loving another woman is already hard enough. And the idea that she might never return those feelings, that feels like a sentence we carry in silence. There's a hidden wound behind all of this. When you're figuring out that you might be lesbian, bi, or queer, every new feeling carries the weight of a possible loss, losing the friendship, losing your own courage. And deep down, the fear of coming out isn't just about how others will react. It's about how you'll handle it if she doesn't feel the same way. The pain of illusion doesn't hurt because it's fake. It hurts because, for a moment, you allowed yourself to believe it could be real. And that in itself is already a brave and intimate act with yourself. But the truth is, feeling something for another woman doesn't make you weak or impulsive. Loving a lesbian or bi woman, even when things are uncertain, is also a form of freedom. It's not about always getting it right. It's about allowing yourself to live what's alive inside you. And if it's not mutual, it still came from a real place within you. The problem was never that you liked her. The real pain starts when you believe that, if it's not returned, then what you felt loses its worth. But feeling is never the mistake. The mistake is erasing yourself just to try and guess what someone else might do. And that's where the confusion begins. Am I really falling for her, or do I just want to feel something, anything? Is this just curiosity, or is it that kind of passion people always talk about? When that doubt about your sexuality shows up, it usually brings a fear of being delusional, of projecting too much. But honestly, even illusions speak some truth. They show you what your heart is longing to experience. And maybe what matters most right now isn't being sure about her, but making sure you don't abandon yourself in the process of feeling. Because deep down, even with all this insecurity, there's a part of you that already knows what you feel is real. Maybe what you feel for her is real, but maybe what's speaking louder inside you is your deep desire to live something true. I feel drawn to another woman, but what really shakes me is how this feeling keeps asking me to stop pretending. to stop running from myself. And that's not small. It's a quiet invitation to listen to yourself with more courage. When you're discovering that you might be lesbian, bi, or queer, feelings don't come with a guidebook. They show up with intensity, confusion, and sometimes even guilt. But what if that discomfort is actually a clue? What if this doubt about your sexuality isn't a mistake, but a reminder that there's something inside you asking to be seen? When feelings start to grow for another woman, even with fear, it can be a form of reunion with yourself, like opening a window after a long time with the curtains drawn. Most lesbian and bi women who go through this feel the urge to hide it, to shut it down, to try and forget. But what if your body and your heart are asking for the opposite? What if this feeling is showing you that you no longer fit in the place where you used to hide? Coming out to yourself doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it starts with a thought that keeps returning, a memory that lingers, a desire that catches you off guard. It's in the small things that the truth begins to reveal itself, not as a scream, but as a whisper. Maybe you're not ready to tell her what you feel. Maybe you're not even sure yet. But what if the first step isn't about saying anything to anyone, but simply about not hiding from yourself anymore? Loving another lesbian, bi, or queer woman before it's about the other person is about letting yourself feel without shame. Because before loving her, you need to allow yourself to love who you truly are. And once you begin to grant yourself that permission, what once felt like confusion slowly begins to turn into a gentle clarity that transforms everything. The courage to say what we feel often starts in a look that lingers a little longer, in how you listen when she speaks, or in the way your body leans in without you even noticing when she's near. Saying you feel attracted to another woman doesn't have to come in the form of a planned-out speech. It can begin with subtle gestures that only someone who's feeling it would understand. And honestly, those gestures often say more than words ever could. There are ways to prepare to speak, even if that conversation still feels far away. One way is to practice alone, out loud, saying what you feel as if you were talking to her. It helps your emotional system realize that feeling isn't a threat, that there's nothing wrong with liking someone of the same gender, that loving a lesbian or bi woman doesn't have to be a secret anymore. Another powerful way to express yourself is by sharing your vulnerabilities with her. Opening up about what moves you, what scares you, and what brings you joy can build a bridge of intimacy that might be the beginning of something deeper. And if you feel like she leans in too, if she meets you in the silences and casual touches, maybe you're already speaking without needing to name it. Because women who love women know how to read between the lines. They understand what it means to love in silence. You don't need to rush. Saying what you feel can come in layers, first to yourself, then in the subtext. Then maybe in words when it feels safe. Or maybe not. Sometimes courage isn't about saying everything. It's about finally stopping the act of pretending you don't feel anything at all. And just that shift can change everything. One of the biggest things that kept me from telling her how I felt was the fear that she'd pull away from me. The fear of coming out often doesn't stem only from questions about your sexuality, but from imagining the worst-case scenario. But what if you paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and looked at that fear with clarity? What if you wrote down, right now, the worst thing that could happen? Would it really be as devastating as it feels? A helpful therapeutic technique is to imagine what you'd do if the worst really happened. What would you feel? Who could support you? What could you do for yourself? That doesn't make the fear disappear, but it gives you back your power of choice. Sometimes the worst that could happen is she doesn't feel the same way. But is that silence you're living in right now hurting more than a possible rejection? Now, what if we dared to imagine the best case scenario? What if she's feeling something too? What if this small act of vulnerability could create a safe space between the two of you? What if loving a lesbian or bi woman wasn't a problem, but a real chance to experience something that feels honest and right? In the end, maybe the biggest win isn't getting her answer, but the connection you build with yourself through all of this. When you allow yourself to imagine both the worst and the best outcomes, you realize you can survive either. And more than that, you realize that feeling something for another woman isn't a mistake to avoid. It's a truth that needs to be heard. And once you begin to really listen, it gets harder and harder to go back to the silence you lived in before. I couldn't tell her what I was feeling. I was scared. And honestly, I didn't even know how. What I felt was too big to force into rehearsed words. I was falling for a woman, and I knew I wasn't ready to share that with the world. But there was one place where that feeling could already be honored, inside of me. Your feelings for another woman don't need outside approval to be real. And you don't need to be absolutely sure to start listening to yourself with honesty. Sometimes the most powerful thing isn't saying it out loud, but finally stopping the denial in silence. Because every time you listen to yourself with compassion, every time you acknowledge what you feel without judgment, a part of you comes home. And that kind of reconnection is worth more than any answer she could give you. If today you're not ready to tell her, that's okay. But please don't keep hiding from yourself. When I realized I was a lesbian, bi, or simply feeling something I hadn't before, I understood I deserved to live it with dignity, with care, and with time. There's no single right way to come out, but there is a way to truly hear yourself. And that starts now by letting yourself be whole, even if it's still in silence. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't even need to know yet if you're falling for another woman, or if you're starting to realize you might be lesbian or bi. All you need is to recognize that there's something inside you asking for space. Something that doesn't want to be silenced anymore. If at any point you felt like loving another woman, whether she's lesbian, bi, or queer, was wrong, too much, or impossible, I hope this video showed you that there's beauty in the process, that there's strength even in the confusion, and that you're not alone. Because what you feel isn't wrong or dramatic or too intense, it's human, and it deserves to be treated with honesty, even if it takes time. This video is the one I wish I had seen when I first started to feel different. When I fell for another woman for the first time and thought something was wrong with me. When I hid from even myself. I hope this video reminded you that what you feel deserves to exist, because in the end, listening to what we feel is often the beginning of everything. If this video touched something inside you, leave a comment below. Have you ever wanted to tell her how you feel but froze? What feelings stayed inside, waiting for space? Maybe your story will help another woman recognize herself too. Because when one of us has the courage to feel with honesty, we open the door for many others to do the same. And if you know someone who's going through this same doubt, this silence, this butterflies in the stomach moment of liking a woman, share this video with her. Sometimes, what seems like just a video can be the nudge someone needed to hear themselves with more compassion. And if this channel speaks to you, hit subscribe. Here, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need the courage to feel. Because in a world that teaches us to hide, Feeling is already an act of revolution. If something in this video stirred something inside you, maybe it's because deep down you've already started listening to yourself. And even if there are still doubts, silences, fears, there's something in you that's ready to bloom in your way, in your time. There's no one right path, there's your path, and it begins each time you choose not to abandon yourself. Maybe you can't name what you're feeling yet, and that's okay. But when you choose not to silence what's alive inside you, what once felt like confusion starts to feel like truth. And that truth doesn't have to be loud or proven. It only needs to be felt and respected. You don't have to know where all of this is leading. But if today you manage to pause and truly listen to yourself, even in silence, then you've already taken a huge step. And maybe, just maybe, that's the step that changes everything.